little known fact about me that you may not know. I kind of, sort of, used to be a brony. Emphasis on kind of and sort of. And now, before you ask, a brony is basically an adult fan, usually male, an adult male fan of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, or just My Little Pony in general. Yeah. Now, I wasn't one of those hardcore fans, that got super obsessed with the show and watched it religiously and had all the merch and plushies and all that stuff. No. I was more of just a casual fan, a casual brony, if you will. I watched the show occasionally. It was fun. It was a fun show to watch. I enjoyed it. I even had a favorite pony, Pinkie Pie. Mainly just because I loved how weird and quirky and different and chaotic she was. I love characters like that. I always relate to characters like that. So, yeah. And also, I did buy a Brony t-shirt from Hot Topic. Yeah. Mainly as a joke. I thought it was kind of funny that Hot Topic was selling a Brony t-shirt. And I always also used to think it was funny that that's what male adult fans were called. Bronies. I always thought that was funny. So I bought it as kind of like a joke towards myself, kind of self-deprecating kind of humor, I love that kind of humor sometimes. So I bought it as a joke, more or less. But yeah. But that's about as far as it went. It never really went any further, Just me being a casual brony or casual fan of the show. Watching it occasionally, buying a shirt, having a favorite pony, etc., etc. But, of course, not everything was friendship and magic. Of course, there was people on the internet who have to ruin everything for everyone, there was people in this fandom community, whatever you want to call it, who take their being a fan of this show way too far. They get overly obsessed with it to a point where they lose their grip on reality. They start seeing and viewing these fictional pony characters as real things and real beings, and they start forming these weird imaginary relationships with these fictional pony characters and all that, and yeah, it's just all a bunch of weirdo shit. That's just, yeah, weird. And then there's the people who take it way too far in a different direction. A more deviant, degenerate, disgusting direction. The ones who are sexual about it. The ones who, are for some reason weirdly sexually attracted to these fictional pony characters. They get off to that sort of thing. They clop. And, yeah. They watch porn of it and make porn of it. Draw porn of it. That's those kind of weird, deviant degenerates. Yeah. They also do way more deplorable, disgusting shit regarding these characters that I could go on and on about, but I'd rather not. Yeah. And there's those people. And don't get me wrong, I was aware of both of these kinds of people existing in the fandom community. I was aware. You'd have to be blind to not be aware of them. But yeah, I was aware. But usually what I did was I kind of just swept them under the rug. I kind of just ignored them to the best of my ability. But sadly, over time, it was getting harder and harder to do that. It was, yeah, they were getting harder the harder to ignore. Couldn't really sweep them under the rug anymore. They were kind of loud and proud and all over the place, in your face and everywhere. They were kind of taking over a lot of the fandom and community. And yeah, they were just getting harder and harder to ignore. Couldn't really ignore them anymore. So and honestly, what really, broke the straw in the camel's back, what was the final nail in the coffin, was the whole Brandon Hole shooting situation. If you know, you know. That whole thing. Once that happened and everything else, I just was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done with this. I'm done with this fandom, this community. I'm done really watching this show. I'm done. I don't really want to be involved or associated with the show anymore at all. Like, there's just too much to ignore, too much to deal with, too much weird shit, too much degenerate shit, too much awful shit associated with this show, this fandom, this community, everything. It's just too much. It's too much to deal with. It's too much to hide under the rug. It's too much to ignore and pretend that it doesn't exist. And yeah, it's just too much. And I just don't want to deal with it anymore. I don't want to be involved with it anymore. I don't want to be even remotely associated with it anymore. Like, I wasn't even that associated with it to begin with. I was just a casual fan. But even then, being a casual fan, I was still exposed to all these kinds of people, these weirdos, these degenerates, these awful things. And it was just... yeah, I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. So I just said, I'm done. I'm done with this fandom, this community. I'm done with this show in general, And I just kind of distanced myself from it all. And yeah. And honestly, also, I wasn't really into the show as much as I used to be. I was starting getting less and less into it and watching it way less, and I honestly kind of stopped caring about it, honestly. Not that it was getting boring, but I guess in a way maybe it was, I was ready to like move on, into different things, better things, less controversial things and shows and stuff. So, yeah. So, yeah. In a way, I kind of look back at all this stuff, all the Brony stuff, everything. I look back on it with mixed feelings, Yeah, there was a lot of good, a lot of good times, fun times of watching the show and stuff like that. And seeing some of the fan art and stuff was cool too. But then there was also a lot of, dealing with the weirdos, the degenerates, the awful shit that's associated with it, dealing with all that. There's also a lot of that too, so it's just like, it's mixed, a lot of mixed feelings, kind of a mixed bag, and yeah, and that's about it. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about it for some reason, and share that kind of stuff to anyone who cares to listen. But yeah, that was my whole, I guess, Brony experience, and why I used to be a Brony and why I'm not anymore. And yeah.